Hello, Expand Dog. How you doing, dude?
Next, something that I believe many of you have already seen. However, maybe not. I would like to make it known. I tried to communicate this to people on Friday, and I don't think a lot of people listened because I kept calling it Labor Day, even though it's not Labor Day. On Monday, yesterday, I had a 2 hour long conversation with DarksydePhil. It was hosted by the Kino Casino, but it was very much just, it was mostly me and Phil. PPP was there and tried to direct conversation at times, and Andy Worski was present also. And it was actually pretty good. I feel that everybody got what they wanted out of this conversation. PPP and Andy wanted their show, and they got it, and it was pretty good. The detractors got what they wanted in terms of two things. First, I didn't go into this completely blind. I spoke with people from the forum, and I tried to be, people were pretty fucking negative about this, as they are, because mostly, I mean, I don't want to give myself, I have reasons to be angry, but I don't have a good rapport with that section of the site. So people were very negative, and I tried talking to people. I invited them to talk to me while the stream was going on. And one of the things that I looked into, that someone actually managed to speak to me without being irate and explain to me something that was actually interesting. And that was, DarksydePhil had this weird relationship with this guy called Derek. And I say Derek. His name is spelled with a CH. And it's very obvious that his name is supposed to be Derek, but he's like a retarded Asian man. And he mispronounces his own name, literally, because his parents call him Derek in videos, but he goes by Derish, and I don't know why. But Derek had a public YouTube channel, and I should explain before I explain that. He has a Twitter account that, to this day, is one of the most hardcore goon Twitter accounts that has ever fucking existed. This guy is one of those people who's really into the quote-unquote adult entertainment industry. Like, in the way that some people are like obsessed with like movie stars, this guy knows like every porn star and routinely like ats porn stars and says like, hey, I really liked your performance in Little Sister 14. Literally, that was one of the names of the videos was, hey, I loved your performances in Little Sister 14. Like, fucking unhinged level of retard gooner. And apparently DarksydePhil even followed this guy on Twitter until he realized that it was all just like porn stuff, so he unfollowed him. But because he had like apparently he had special permissions, and I'm going off secondhand information, but they were saying like Derek is very low IQ and would just spam his chat to get DSP's attention, and DSP would just allow this, even though almost anybody else would be banned or timed out for spamming the chat for attention. And people that were complaining about Derek would get banned from the chat too. So it really seemed like, according to these guys, that he was getting a level of attention and protection that nobody else was. In addition, he had been around for so long, like 2 years at this point, that they just started calling him like DSP's son, this weird Asian guy. And the weird thing that was like the sticking point with Derek is that he had a public YouTube at some point, and he had a list of playlists, and it was very obviously his account. It had a playlist for like Street Fighter stuff. There was some other fighting game, and it was just like a collection of videos showing like, because the characters will do like sexy poses as they fight in like skimpy bikinis, and he just had like playlists for like naked, like string bikini naked fighting girls in like these games. And then sandwiched between all these interests that are relevant to Derek are 3 separate playlists with over 300 videos, I think, in every single one of them, that were just called like cute little girls. And you could tell from the thumbnails that it was just like innocuous like playground footage of children. And it's like, what are you doing, bro? Why do you have almost 1,000 fucking videos of little girls on your YouTube playlist? And this had been brought up for years to DarksydePhil, that Derek was a creep and it should be obvious just by his behavior. And for whatever reason, he was never banned. So during the conversation, and this was apparently the highlight of the video or the conversation for the detractors, it was kind of asking him, why don't you ban this guy? Because he's obviously like no good. He's a part of your community. People say that he gets a little bit more special attention than everybody else. Why not ban him? And then PPP it took. I clipped this out, by the way. It was 18 minutes from the topic being raised and being pressed until DSP finally committed to banning him if he saw him again in chat. And it got to the point where PPP just had to tell him if this guy's in your community and you're aware that he's in your community, I can't be friendly with you because number one, I don't want to in that instance. And number two, my community wouldn't allow me to. The Kino Casino viewer base would not be okay with us having a friendly relationship if you were aware of this guy and still continue to tolerate him. And something along those lines eventually compelled him to move forward with it. And his logic was for not doing it was tortured and naive. I think if you want to be as malicious as possible in interpreting his motivation, you'll just say that he'll $20 is $20, and if he's a pedophile, it's not his business as long as he pays up. However, DSP's counterclaim to that would be that he wasn't like a huge pay pig, but there was speculation just because of how weird it was that he got this special treatment that his parents were giving him a lot of money behind the scenes. The most favorable interpretation that you can have is that he was just very naive and obstinate, because his stated logic was that he doesn't want to give the detractors a win. If the detractors can pull up his fans and go one by one through them and find people who have a history, and then you ban them because of what they find, well, number one, you have to engage the detractors, you have to look at their stuff, you have to investigate your own fans, and then you have to ban people who are supporting you, and that encourages them to continue doing that. And, there is some logic to that. It is a no-win situation. It's a catch-22. It's a Zugzwang, if you prefer. And it does suck. It happened to me recently with Ricada and that fucking Curus guy. And it sucks that they are happy that you're put in this no-win situation. But there's an obvious correct answer, and I can kind of understand his obstinance as an obstinate person myself. But there is only one correct path, and I'm a little bit disappointed that he took so long to be compelled to that line of thinking. The other kind of notable thing was and I was very happy that it went this way, because I didn't have any plan. I didn't really have an idea of what it would be like talking to him, because I thought it was a video game at first, and then apparently at the last second I was told indirectly, because he had talked about it on a pre-stream a day before, that his actual plan was to confront me on the Kiwi Farms. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're not playing a game then. So it was 2 hours, and it was kind of interesting, because I'm used to talking to people who are actually severely mentally handicapped to the point where it's hard to keep them on a line of thought. But DSP is very capable of posing a question, taking a question response, and then answering that question, and then moving on to the next topic and remembering where he was mentally. And I was very pleased by that, because it allowed us to have an actual conversation and not have a clusterfuck where you have to kind of continually lead that person on to the next topic and the next topic, which is sometimes an issue that you have when you talk to certain people. But he was able to he had a list of things that he wanted to talk about, and he was able to keep track of where he was in his head. Which, I'm not trying to be demeaning, it's just that, I have a very specific interview style, and sometimes that's not always available. So he tried to press me on the forum, and I think he genuinely underestimated how much thought I put into things. I do not have the liberty to be careless, so I'm not. I have a very good reason for a lot of the things that I do, and I am pretty grounded and the philosophical leanings of why the forum exists and why it is what it is. And I think he was a little bit taken aback that I actually had answers for everything. And it's not just like, well, you know, I'm a lunatic or I don't know what's going on. It's just kind of like, yeah, I know what it is, and I know I have a reason for it. So, I think that's it. It's pretty interesting to listen to. The other thing that was interesting to the people is that, people listening, was that, PPP got him to confess, even as like the setup was a joke, but he said that he was Down the Rafters, and if you've been around for a while, you'll know that Down the Rafters is an account on the WWE Champions mobile game that during the bankruptcy saga, it was alleged that DarksydePhil had poured hundreds of thousands, like over $100,000 into gotcha pools in these mobile games is what they call them. So, him even saying that in jest was like a big entertaining point for people. But it was crazy because everyone seemed happy with it. You know what I mean? Like DarksydePhil was very pleased that he had like a conversation with me, and it was a civil conversation, and he was taken seriously and got real answers to questions. PPP and Andy Worski, you know, were happy to have a 2-hour-long show that people liked. I was happy, and I got something out of it I did not expect. Everyone seemed to like it. Everyone seemed to like that my performance, and they said that I was reasonable to both DarksydePhil and to the detractors. And people in the forum seemed kind of won over that I didn't shit on them as much as they thought I would. So I was I think as far as all the people involved are concerned, I probably came out the most in terms of getting what I wanted, because people seem to not hate me as much a little bit afterwards, which I honestly didn't even expect. That was just a bonus to having a fun conversation about the internet. So that was cool. And the detractors got what they wanted because they hated Derek. They hated Derek more than life itself. So he got banned afterwards. So everybody was happy. What a nice happy ending, chat. And if you're interested in hearing it, it's on Rumble, it's on Odyssey, there's a VOD on Kick, but I might delete that, so don't look at it. It's on the manoftheinternet.com site, and it's also on the RSS feed already, so give it a listen if you're curious. Thank you. Coley Dante for 5 says, friendly advice, you're rhetorically weak on the DSP's wife cousin's nude issue. If you had a rationale on why that was morally better than revenge porn, you did not express it well. She's a whore. She's a literal back-page prostitute, and I don't give a fuck what happens to her. As far as morals go, I don't give a shit. So, again, as I was saying, I didn't feel like I was talking to someone who was, like, so beneath me that I had to, like, play with kid gloves. He's definitely an adult man who is at or around, you know, average intelligence. And I think he just has like personality defects in regards to how he handles criticism, how he evaluates risk assessment. He doesn't really seem to place his. I don't know. It's just interesting because it's, you know, he was so successful so early by breaching into the Let's Play genre as like a blue ocean market, which nowadays it's not. You have multiple platforms dedicated just to catering to the video game streamer, but he was one of the first. So I think he just kind of stumbled into this, and now it's like, imagine if you just take any average guy and you make him deal with a bunch of bullshit on the internet. You're probably going to get someone who is not treated well and who fucks up a lot and exposes a lot of like sore spots and stuff like that. I think that if anything, the one thing I think that he does have a tendency to misrepresent stuff, especially when it comes to things that have happened in the past. Like I think that what he does that's manipulative, that people hate about him, like his detractors really hate, is that he's pretty good at like confusing timelines and making you question if you know what you think you know. And unless you're like super locked in on DSP lore and you know like the minutia of all this bullshit, it's very easy for him, I think, naturally in conversation to say things to trip you up and make you uncertain about what you think you know. And I think that that is a trait that inspires people to become very angry. And the kinds of people who would know the minutia to the point where they could like really pin him down in a conversation are people who don't have the social competency to actually do so, which creates this weird situation where DSP is like never actually pinned on anything. If that makes sense. I'm not trying to be too negative, because I'm not entirely convinced that his personality flaws are like any more malicious than like another average person who has, you know, personality flaws. That's just how it comes across to me.